let me know if you've got any problems hearing me, and I hope you had a great weekend. It's Monday here in Sydney, Australia, Sunday over in the USA, obviously. And today I'm going to be doing a vegan special, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But I'm going to cover 2 recipes, and hopefully I'm going to try and actually do this a little bit quickly, and I'll explain why as well. Okay, good to have you back, by the way. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jackie M, and if you're watching from anywhere else, go and join me on Twitch, right? It's twitch.tv/JackieMFood, or otherwise just shortcut JackieM.live will take you to the same location as well. And if you and then you get to interact with me in the chat and all that as well. I'm losing my voice a little bit as well today, so hopefully we'll be okay. But yeah, let me just quickly hop onto Twitch over here. And again, like I said, if you've got any audio problems or whatever, let me know. There's a slight delay between when I talk and when it actually gets broadcast, which is why every time someone says they have problems hearing me, I then have to not just make a quick change, I then have to wait for a few seconds to make sure that what I did actually did make a difference. Okay, yeah, just give me a second, hopping on to Twitch, and audio off. Okay, let's go to my channel. Okay, so week 3, day 1 of week 3 on Twitch, and I'm going to be making something called kaya, which a lot of Malaysians will be familiar with. And what it is just a coconut custard jam with a pandan flavoring. And I'm actually going to attempt a vegan version of it today. I'm not going to follow the recipe too closely. I found it online, by the way. And the reason why I'm making a vegan version is that I'll just show you what I'm using instead of eggs, right? Usually kaya consists of pretty simple ingredients. You need coconut cream or coconut milk, eggs, sugar, and pandan, and I'll explain a little bit about what pandan is in a bit. But this is the picture of a jar of kaya over there. You can see it in that picture I've just enlarged, and that's actually my picture. So that's that there. But like I said, we're making a vegan version because Noah, I keep calling him baby Noah, but he's actually 4.5, but he's mentally about 12 months old. But he started attending this preschool a couple of weeks ago, and there's a kid in that preschool who's allergic to eggs and milk and other stuff as well. So he's not allowed to, nobody's allowed to bring any anything that contains egg or milk, right? And kaya is usually what I spread on his bread, so I haven't been able to do that. So I'm going to attempt this recipe. And this is the sweet potato. You can see it on the screen over here. Okay, this is my first time buying a white sweet potato. Okay, they are at my local greengrocer. They have purple sweet potato. They have orange sweet potato, which is the most common. And they had these white sweet potatoes, and literally this is my first time using it. And look, I've just discovered it's actually purple on the inside. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see how it looks when I cook it up. And I haven't even bothered peeling the skin because I usually tend to keep the skin intact with a lot of my root vegetables. Okay, they don't bother me as much as just give me a second, as they do some people, I guess. So I'm just cutting these into chunks, and then I'm going to throw them into a steamer, and I'm going to steam them till they're soft. And thanks, the Hunger Service. Thanks for auto hosting. Thanks for hosting me. By the way, guys, before I go on any further, quick shout outs to Lenovo Australia for supplying me with the laptop I use for my live broadcast, which is an IdeaPad Y700 gaming laptop. So it's got more than enough processing power for me to be able to run these. I have in the past, I've done live streaming for years, just not on Twitch, but I have in the past used other types of laptops and cause problems, but this one is perfect. And also I want to give a shout out to Rode microphones, assuming you can hear me okay. Okay, because I had, through a series of unfortunate events, I've had a number of audio issues, not because of the microphones but because of my setups and implementation. But Rode microphones supplies me with the microphones I use, and Sunbeam Australia for some of my cooking appliances. Okay, and I'm using a Sunbeam steamer over here. Okay, the water is boiling. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but I'm just throwing these in here, and I'm going to steam them till soft. At a guess, I would say it'll probably take about 10-15 minutes, right? And to that, I'm going to add some coconut cream. I may not have enough in here. There's only probably about 100-150 mils in here. And I'm going to throw in some sugar. I am tempted to use palm sugar. I'm not sure yet. But if you're curious to know what palm sugar is, this is what it looks like. Here you go. Okay. This is the Malaysian, actually, is it Malaysian? Gula Jawa. This is Indonesian, okay? Palm sugar. And there are a variety of different types of palm sugar, and I keep talking about this because there's, you know, we Asians have different names for ingredients, and also we have the same name for certain ingredients that are actually different in depending on which part of Asia you come from. Okay, so palm sugar is a good example, right? The generic name for it is palm sugar. That's what we call it in English, right? But palm sugar is just kind of like a generic name that covers a number of different types of palm sugar. So in Malaysia, what we use is gula Melaka usually, which means Malaccan sugar, okay? And it's most famously from the state of Malacca in Malaysia. In Indonesia, they have a number of different types. This one here is called gula Jawa, okay? And sometimes they have gula aren as well, and sometimes have gula kelapa. Gula just means sugar. Kelapa is coconut sugar, so coconut sugar would work just as well. But unfortunately, palm sugar is what a lot of white people know as Thai palm sugar, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is a Thai palm sugar, if you can see it. Here you go. Right, see it says palm sugar, but you can see it looks completely different, and the texture is different as well. So Malaysian, Indonesian palm sugar usually comes in logs, okay? Usually they're a longer log. Thai palm sugar is usually comes in discs, okay? Sometimes it's in a jar or something like that, like solid in a jar, and you've got to spoon it out. But Thai palm sugar generally is a lot more. I'll just see if you can see it over here. Thai palm sugar is generally a lot harder. Okay, so that's the Thai palm sugar. Whereas Indonesian, Malaysian palm sugar, the way we use it is we would just kind of like shave it down. So it's almost like brown sugar at the end. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And the great thing about this palm sugar is once you've shaved it down like this, right, you can then, depending on what you use it for, so if you're making a Onde-Onde, which is my second recipe, so I might actually have to do it first because that's still steaming. You can then, what you can do with the palm sugar that's been shaved down is you can then form it into balls, okay? Just kind of like crush it like this, okay? If you can see it, then you get a ball like this, and what we're going to do is we're going to use it as a stuffing for the dessert that we're going to make. It's Thai palm sugar, like I said. It's really quite hard, right? And there's also Indian sugar as well, jaggery, I think it's called. But it goes to show sometimes, you know, just reading off a recipe book or something like that, you may not get the full picture. That's why you need to watch me. But I have been caught out myself before because we Asians don't necessarily think of these nuances, right? Because we're so used to it. And I was actually flown into Melbourne one time to do some live cooking demonstrations. And I was told there was a food importer who was going to supply me with the ingredients I was going to use for my cooking demonstrations. So just send them a list of ingredients that I needed, right? And I actually made this dish that I'm making, one of the dishes I'm making today, I actually was planning to make at that cooking demonstration. And I put down palm sugar. And they gave me a type of palm sugar that was more like this, okay? And they actually came in strips as opposed to, you know, and they were really, really hard. When you cut them, it's almost like snapping like bits off like a length or something like that. And it made it so hard to handle. And I made a joke about it on stage, right? I was there for like 2 or 3 days to do some cooking demonstrations, and I made a joke on it on stage. I said, "Oh, look, goes to show, like even we Asians get confused about Asian ingredients. So it's a learning process, but nonetheless, you know, thanks to the company for supplying the stuff, and go and visit their tent after this. But just a heads up, if this recipe doesn't turn out, it's because of the palm sugar, okay? And that company, what are they called? Oriental Imports or whatever, right? My next cooking demonstration, and the crowd loved it. They thought it was hilarious, right? Because you're kind of on stage and you just realize right there and then that they're giving you the wrong ingredients, so you kind of have to make light of the situation. Next cooking demonstration, I showed up at the appointed time, and I was told, "I'm sorry, all your cooking demonstrations have been cancelled." You know, no reason given. Nobody wanted to talk to me about it. They just said management have decided to cancel all your cooking demonstrations. So I basically spent the rest of that weekend in Melbourne just hanging out. And I was told after the fact that that it was because of that palm sugar incident. Go figure, right? How sensitive are some Asians? Because it was an Asian company, not a Malaysian company, an Asian company. Okay, so there you go. Got this, and one thing I want to make is something called Onde-Onde, which is that picture of those green dumplings on the round. I'm just going to go wash my hands quickly, so give me a second. Okay, there's one other ingredient that I need, just hang on. Okay, so this one here, this next ingredient usually comes in these tiny little tubes, okay? But because everything I buy is industrial size because I run a business. This is what mine looks like, okay? This, I'll just hold it up here. This, it says pandan. Pandan, basically this is a pandan concentrate, okay? Almost like a pseudo food coloring, and it's green in color. And for those of you who don't know what pandan is essentially a type of leaf that grows quite wild over in Malaysia, right? So there are these long blades, and what we use it for is that we basically use it in both sweet and savory recipes. I think what most people would be familiar with pandan in terms of thinking of pandan would be these pandan chicken parcels. I don't know if you eat a lot of Thai food, usually at Asian restaurants, among the list of entrees in a Thai restaurant, you will see these deep fried pandan chicken, right? So basically what they are, they're these long leaves, long green leaves, and then they have like marinated like chunks of chicken that are kind of wrapped in a triangular shape and then held together with toothpick and then deep fried. And what pandan does, every time people ask me what pandan is, I like to describe it as Asian vanilla, right? And since I started describing it as Asian vanilla, somebody else has taken that term and made it popular, okay, popularized it. So you'll see online, like, you know, there'll be other people who claim they introduced pandan to the West, right? And pandan, like I said, it's used in both sweet and savory, and also it's used as a coloring as well. You can actually buy those leaves here in Australia. You can usually buy them frozen. That's your best bet. Depending on which part of Australia you're from, like here in Sydney, if you go to like Asian community hubs like Cabramatta, you can actually buy them fresh, okay? And if you pre-order it at Flemington, where I do my shopping, they will bring it in for me. But usually your best bet would be to buy it frozen. So you find packs of like long plastic packs that have frozen pandan, and they'll be really limp once they're defrosted, so they're not aesthetically appealing, but essentially you use it to extract the flavor. And sometimes you can just kind of like tie it up in a bunch and then use it in your cooking, right? Usually you would simmer it with your curry, or put a bunch of pandan leaves in with the rice that you're steaming, and it just gives it a nice aroma, and it might kind of like add a tiny little tinge of green to your rice as well. Not much, but the other way of using it is that you can like cut the leaves into chunks and then pound them and then extract them to obtain this green color, okay? And I've got some over here. I did this like weeks and weeks ago, so it's no longer green. It's kind of like a dull gray with a green tinge, okay? So this is extracted from like fresh pandan leaves or frozen pandan leaves. Essentially, just I actually add a bit of water to it and just blend it in the blender, okay, and then just extract the water. So I'm going to use some of these because I'm using very similar ingredients in these two things that I'm making. First of all, the pandan, the kaya is actually a pandan custard, right? And the onde-onde is also a pandan. See the green hue with the onde-onde, which is these dumplings here on the right, on my right, these ones here, the green hue is obtained from the pandan essence, right? But because it's quite a stark green, that's actually, to get that stronger color, you would usually use the pandan concentrate. You can leave it out, guys. It's not that big a deal. It's like leaving vanilla out of your cake or something like that. You probably most of the time won't notice it. It's more of an aesthetic thing, right? So, if you don't care for the flavor or whatever, leave it out, and then you just have to use a different coloring to kind of like add color to these dumplings that we want to make. Okay, so that's that. Let me just check on this. This is quite interesting. This is quite purple. Okay, it's still quite firm. I probably won't use all of it because I don't know how it's going to turn out for a start, right? So let's steam it for another 5 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start boiling up these palm sugar chunks, okay? And the other way you can process this palm sugar is actually just throw it into a food processor. I'm just using the Thermomix over here, okay? I'm just using it as a food processor. So I'm just throwing these in just to speed it up a bit. There are, guys, there are different types of palm sugar with different levels of like, how soft they are, okay? This one seems quite hard, but I have had other ones that are almost like demerara sugar. They almost like just fall apart when you even just crush them with your fingers, okay? So I'll turn this in here, and I'll throw it in the, I'll just turn it on for a few seconds and then just process it. Okay, I'm missing a lid for this. Where did it go? I'll just cover it like this. Did not like it. That's very unusual. I'm going to transfer it into the thermocouple. I wonder what there's something going on in here. I'm just going to empty the jug. Okay, let's try this. Okay, that's better. You can see that? So it's really quite soft and loosey here. Okay, I'm going to put some gloves on, and I'm just going to ball these into like little balls, right? That that Thermomix needs a look at. I wonder if there's something. I think it's probably just like stuck in the blade or something like that, you know, so it couldn't move properly. Just going to clear these out of the way. Okay. So with the Thai palm sugar, and I never really like use it much unless I'm doing Thai cooking. Okay. So use the Malaysian palm sugar or Indonesian palm sugar. And in all honesty, I find that I really like the Indonesian product. Like so when you go shopping, like I said, they come in tubes usually, and in English I'll say palm sugar, but they'll have in fine print or in smaller print gula aren, gula Jawa, and they're basically used the same way. Okay, so they're just different types of palm sugar. And so with these here, I'm just going to, like I said, compress them into little balls like this, right? And I'm going to do that, and they're going to end up being the filling inside the Onde-Onde, okay? So both of these recipes are sweet, and they're both vegan, but you remember Tanya, who was here on my last broadcast? Tanya and I are working on a vegetarian series. So starting Friday in a couple of weeks, we're going to launch a Twitch Vegetarian Fridays, okay? And Twitch Vegetarian Fridays with Jackie and Tanya. Because Tanya, unbeknownst to me, is actually a virtual vegetarian. So it's just as well what I cooked on my last broadcast, the hakka pan mi, is essentially, you know, except for the stock, which is fish stock, you know, which she was okay with. She was actually a vegetarian. It goes to show, if ever you want to guest on my show, guys, let me know if you've got any dietary restrictions or preferences or whatever, because I expect people to do that with me, because I do have some dietary restrictions in that I don't eat pork and I don't eat celery. But the fact of the matter is, so just pulling this up. The fact of the matter is, you know, I always forget to ask other people in turn. Okay, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite that way. So like I said, you just want to kind of like just crush them together. And it's just really kind of like a little bit of a tedious job, right? And I like to have these sugar balls quite large because I like a lot of sweetness in my dumplings, but usually you would make them smaller, okay? And with Onde-Onde, the ingredients are very simple. It's just glutinous rice flour, and I'll show you what it looks like in a little bit. There's palm sugar, the pandan coloring, okay? Like I said, you can use another coloring if you like. So that's that. And also coconut, okay? I use desiccated coconut. I used to sell this at my restaurant and at some of my market stalls, guys, so I do know what I'm doing. But the kaya that I'm making, the vegetarian, the vegan kaya that I'm making in a minute, it'll be my first time experimenting with the recipe. Okay, so if you've got any questions about what I do, the basically I'm going to experiment with the kaya recipe, right? And I will tweak it after the show, and then the recipe gets uploaded to my website, which is just jackiem.com.au. So go and have a look over there, right? So technically these should be like marble size, but this is a lot bigger than marble size. This is like about double marble size over here. Okay. Okay. So best to wear gloves when you're doing this. I'm just going to take this off. Now I'll make the skin for this onde-onde, and this is glutinous rice flour over here. You can see it. It's a bag of, like, you know, a white bag with green print. I've mentioned this brand before, this Era One brand, the elephant brand, right? I've mentioned it before. They pretty much have the market covered as far as Asian, like, flowers. So when I go to the shops, I don't even read this. I just look for the color of the label. Okay, I know that the green label bags of flour are glutinous rice flour, the blue labeled ones are tapioca flour, and the red labeled ones are rice flour, and I use all three all the time. So what I want to do is just add water to this. Okay, I'm just gonna throw this in a glass bowl. Okay, so just a glass bowl. I'm going to throw some of this in here. I don't measure when I make this because you kind of like basically just need to get it to turn it into a dough by adding water or coconut milk, right? I actually just use water nowadays. I used to add coconut milk to this and just keep mixing it in until it becomes like a nice soft texture. Let's just check and see how this is going. Okay, tongs, give me a second. Okay, so you can see this over here. This is the steamed, look at how purple it's turned. It's fascinating to me as well because I don't really use it. This is my first time buying white sweet potato. So I've got about this much here. Should I do the whole lot? Might as well. And the reason why I bought the white sweet potato is just price, basically. So it's already got a little bit of sweetness to it, not as, you know, not intensely sweet, but as far as texture, it tastes to me like it's a little bit rougher than your regular orange sweet potato. With orange sweet potato, I like to use it for certain things, but there's a particular recipe that I used to make Malaysian donuts, and I don't use orange sweet potato for that. And the reason for it is that it's too starchy, so it's really hard to handle, and it just gets sticky all over your hands. And for that, I use purple sweet potato, the one with actual purple skin. I'll show you that another time. Just give me a second while I check something here. Okay. Cool, all looks good. Okay, so hopefully my Thermomix works now. I'm just gonna blend this. I don't think I'm going to add the green pandan into that because it looks quite purple. So purple and green, I don't know what color that makes. I just don't want to make it look any weirder than it already does. Okay, so there you go. Right, see what I mean about how purple it is? So I'm going to this, I'm going to add sugar and coconut cream, and I'm going to cook it, okay? And I think I'm going to put it in a pan. Okay. Oh yeah, the reason why I'm rushing through this a little bit, guys, is because this is only my 3rd week on Twitch, right? Which means that I've only just basically done half a month of Twitch, and I've used up nearly my entire data allowance with my broadcast. So that's something I'm going to have to rethink because just give me a second. Okay, just let me, okay, there you go. Apparently the overlay is a bit odd. Let me just change screen so you can see the overhead a bit better. Okay, so see the pan. I'm just going to move this up a little bit. Okay, cool. Let's turn this on. I'm just going to cook half of this for the moment, all right? So there you go. Throw this in here. So you can see a bit of the skin in there. Let me just take it out. And then maybe I'm going to blend this again at the end. But in goes the coconut cream. Right. It almost tastes, to be honest, it tastes like taro, this sweet potato. I hope they didn't label it wrong and it's meant to be taro. I know what taro looks like, but there are different types of yams and all that sort of stuff. So who knows? It's sweet anyway, so there's that. And I'm going to add sugar. I'm going to use plain white sugar just to see how it turns out. Okay, I don't want to mess it up too much by adding like brown sugar that's going to turn it into like a muddy color. Just hang on. Okay, and I'm going to add a pinch of salt to this. I don't usually do this for kaya. This is just salt, right? Just a pinch of salt. But usually when I make sweets, when I make Malaysian desserts, I like to kind of like add a little bit of salt to it just to kind of like counter the sweet, not counter, to actually bring out the sweetness a bit. It's nice to have a little bit of a contrast, right? But I don't usually do it with kaya. When I make the regular kaya, I don't usually put salt in it, but I just thought I might this time around. Okay, in goes the sugar. I'll just put about, I'm going to put 4 tablespoons in there. Let's cook it up and see how it turns out. The color is a little bit off. Okay, just let me see if I can adjust my screen here a little bit. Okay, better. Let's turn it down a bit. This could be taro jam, the fact that it's purple like this. Let me just taste test this a little bit. It's very sweet. I think I put too much sugar in it. Yeah, certainly mix it through a little bit better. So this is going to be used as a spread on toast for Noah, not toast, so I use plain bread for Noah for when he goes to school. But usually he has the normal kaya, which I make a lot of as well. And if you're just catching this now, the reason why I'm making this for him as opposed to serving him the normal kaya is because his school has an allergy-aware environment. So that's because there's a kid there who's allergic to both milk and eggs. Nobody's allowed to bring anything that contains those ingredients. Whereas normal kaya, instead of the sweet potato, I would actually have eggs. Okay, so essentially it's just eggs, coconut milk, coconut cream, sugar, and pandan. Pandan is that green flavoring thing that I mentioned before. Okay, look at this, right? You see it? Okay, just let me taste test this again. It is very sweet, and I can't really taste too much of the. I'm going to use more of the pandan mash just to counter the sweetness a bit, and I'm going to add a little bit of salt because I can't really taste the salt that I put in earlier. So I'm putting the rest of this in. So yeah, the vegan series that's coming up with that I'm going to be doing with Tanya Strange. If you missed my last episode, it's up on Twitch. Just go to twitch.tv/JackieMFood. And I'm going to add more coconut cream to this. Okay, hang on a second. So if there's any particular vegan or vegetarian recipes, it's a vegetarian series because vegan is just too hard for me to be able to handle. Okay. But yeah, if anyone has any particular vegetarian or vegan recipes they want us to cover, let me know. You know how to contact me. All my social media are all listed on my Twitch overlay. Okay. So what happened to my now cooking? Oh, because I didn't put it up. Let me have a look. Text. Add text now cooking over here. Vegan, Kaya, and Onde. Oops, typo. Onde. Okay. Okay. Reduce it. Bring it down here. This makes it really hard. Okay. I need to wrap my head around how to rearrange these overlays properly. Okay, cool. So you're just joining me now. This is a coconut jam, the Malaysian coconut jam that usually is made with eggs and coconut cream and sugar and pandan, which is a Malaysian flavoring agent. It's kind of like what we call Asian vanilla, but I'm making a vegan version today. No eggs, and instead of eggs, I've used basically steamed and mashed sweet potato. And this is, well, I thought it was white sweet potato, but apparently white sweet potato turns purple. Okay, so let me just take. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of salt here, but it almost seems like it's too thick. A little bit. And I'm going to add a bit more sugar. Okay. But it's pretty much okay beyond that. And I'm going to throw it back into the blender just to smooth it out a bit. Okay. Turn it off into my Thermomix. So if you own one of these Thermomix or Thermocooks, you could technically actually just do the whole cooking in there, okay? After you blend the sweet potato, you can actually, so that's it in here. Okay, you can't really see it. After you blend the sweet potato, you can add sugar, add the coconut cream, and let it cook some more because these Thermomix Thermocooks do actually cook. You can set it at a particular speed and time and temperature and let it cook for you for 15 minutes or whatever. The blade's not spinning really well today. Okay, so you can see that still a little bit chunky. Doesn't matter. This is for home consumption. So this is going to be Noah's jam moving forward. Yeah, it tastes fine. It's like I said, it's not as smooth as normal kaya with the eggs, right? Because you know, being a potato, you can imagine, like, even though it's completely mashed up, it's still got a little bit of a texture to it, which is fine. I'm sure you'll like it. So I'm gonna get this out of the way, and I'm gonna finish off the onde-onde I talked about, and I'm going to cheat because I'm going to use the water in here. Should I? The water looks a bit green because of the. I'm going to actually boil some more water. Okay, so just give me a second. Okay, turn this on. I'm going to test something, guys. So this camera is almost too zoomed in. Let me see if I can move it up a bit closer, a little bit further. Okay, see how we go. I'm going to test something because I've been having problems with these pre-recorded bits, right? So I want to see if the audio works. So give me a shout out and let me know. Hey Aaron, what am I making? Kueh. Yeah, I'm making onde-onde, which is a kueh. For those of you who don't know, kueh basically is kind of like a general term in reference to snacks, both sweet and savory. So the onde-onde is considered a kueh. What I just made, Aaron, is I know it looks nothing like it, but I make kaya, but a vegan version. And the reason why it was vegan is because it's got no egg, right? Because usually, if you know about kaya, kaya is fundamentally eggs, kind of like a custard, right? It's eggs and coconut cream and pandan and sugar. But because of allergy reasons, at the school that my son goes to, I have to pack him only egg-free lunches. So he's missing out on his kaya. So I thought I'd track down a vegan kaya recipe online, which suggested using sweet potato instead. So I had a look at the store, and here at my local greengrocer, they have 3 different types of sweet potato. They have white sweet potato, purple sweet potato, and orange sweet potato. Orange sweet potato is what we're most familiar with, what we usually call kumara. But the orange and the purple sweet potatoes were quite expensive this time around, but the white sweet potato only costs $1.99 a kilo. So I bought a kilo of that and steamed it and mashed it up. But in the steaming and mashing process, it actually turned purple as well. So this is sweet potato kaya, which looks like purple sweet potato, or even looks like taro. So all this is just sweet potato, sugar, coconut cream, and that's it. Okay, a pinch of salt as well, just to balance out the flavor. So I'm going to use this once it cools down as a spread on Noah's sandwiches when he takes it to school. Okay, and the reason why Noah has to eat that, as opposed to even as opposed to ham sandwiches or whatever, is because Noah has no teeth. He had to have all his teeth removed because Noah, if anyone who doesn't know, is my Down syndrome toddler, and he was very, very sick. He spent 217 days of his first 217 days of his life was spent in the hospital. So he had a lot of different kinds of problems, and then at some point over a year ago, his teeth started to decay, and instead of risking his health because he's had a couple of open heart surgeries, they basically decided to remove all his teeth. So he's got no teeth at all until his second teeth come in. Okay, so until then he has to eat soft stuff. Okay, and this is going to be for the onde-onde. These are gula melaka, palm sugar, that I basically processed and then crushed, okay, in a, so I crushed it in a blender. You can see it over here. And then just kind of like form them into balls, like what you've seen over there. And now I'm going to boil these, right? And in the meantime, I've got some glutinous rice flour, and I need some coconut. Let me just grab that. Give me a second. So what you want is to get a bowl ready with some desiccated coconut. That's what this is here. Okay, so there's you can use fresh coconut, fresh grated coconut. It's a little bit hard to come by here in Australia, which is like part of the reason why I use desiccated coconut. But the other thing you got to keep in mind as well is that fresh coconut doesn't have much of a shelf life. So if you're making onde-onde to be eaten right away, if you're making it for a party this afternoon or something like that, use fresh coconut. If you're making it like, you know, to eat over the next couple of days, the fresh coconut will go off, okay? So just let me switch back to my 2-camera shot. That's not the one, this one here. Okay, now, as I was saying, I'm just going to test out a quick pre-roll, and let me know if you've got any problems hearing me, okay? Okay, could you hear that? Let me know. Okay, but to this, I'm going to add some water. I'm going to grab some water. Okay, so that's it here. I'm going to take my glove off. The reason I switched screen is so that you could actually see what I'm doing, but I've realized I've moved my camera so that you can't actually see it. So I've got some the pandan concentrate. Okay, so this is basically pandan, concentrated pandan flavoring and coloring. Okay, this has artificial coloring in it as well, which is why the color is going to be a lot more intense than if you were just extracting pandan juice from pandan leaves over here, like what I've got here. And the other thing you can do, actually, you can buy canned pandan juice, okay? So it's basically something like this, but in a can, so you don't have to try and track down pandan leaves to extract your own juice. You just basically buy those cans. They cost about $1, $1.20 or something like that here in Australia. So keep an eye out for those, right? But this, like I said, does contain some artificial flavoring and coloring, so the color is very intense. So if ever you use something like this, and usually they come in like small little you know, concentrated little capsules, right? But I buy this large one because I use it for my business. But if you're using something like this, you want to use only a very small amount, okay? Because a little goes a long way with this, okay? So I've drizzled about, essentially about equivalent to about 1.5 drops or something like that. And I'm just going to add some water to this, okay? And I'm going to mix it up. Okay, you can see it, yeah. You can see the green just coming through a little bit. I think I've put too much water in there already. Now, when I used to make this for my restaurant, we started out using coconut. We started out using coconut milk instead of water, okay? But I couldn't actually taste the difference between using water and coconut milk, so in the end we just switched back to just using water. I mean, some people think they can taste the difference. I can't, right? So well, I'm just mixing this up. And just let me move this out of the way a little bit so you can see what I'm, okay, you can't, okay. Okay, over here. So what I did actually, I added a little bit more flour because I added too much water in there. So this is the color I've got it now. Okay, just a very, very light green color. You can add more the one in the picture on my screen actually has quite a lot more color to it. So it's a personal preference thing. I tend to find that if you make it too intense a color, it just looks fake, you know. So this still feels quite soft to me. Just okay. I might add a little bit more flour to it still. Okay. So all it is just glutinous rice flour, which is easily obtainable at Asian grocery stores for like about $1, somewhere between $1 and $1.50, I guess, here in Australia. Oh, hi, Gay. Good to have you. That's good to know. That's going to be the first time in like 8 or 7 broadcasts that nobody's complained about my audio so far. So, Gay, what you missed out on is that I first made basically today is vegan day for no apparent reason, because I'm not a vegan by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not even vegetarian. Well, there is an apparent reason. The reason being that the jam, the homemade jam, which is called kaya, Malaysian homemade jam, that I usually use on Noah's sandwiches, I can't use for his new preschool because they have an allergy aware policy. So I thought I'll look up a kaya recipe. Kaya is that coconut jam that doesn't use eggs. So I came across this one that essentially replaced the eggs with sweet potato. So I've made it, and this is what it looks like. Okay. So it's like a purple, it's like mashed sweet potato essentially. But the sweet potato was actually, that I used was actually white sweet potato. I cut it up and steamed it, and after steaming it turned purple, and I just mashed it up. And according to the recipe, it's just basically mashing it up and then cooking it with sugar and with coconut milk. I used coconut cream, and I added a bit of salt to it as well. And voila, that's my coconut jam for Noah for use on his sandwiches. And while I was at it, I figured since there's some crossovers in the ingredients, like usually with kaya, it uses pandan, which is what I call Malaysian vanilla, but Gay, I think you'd be very familiar with pandan. So this is the pandan over here. I was going to put it in that jam, but because it was such a bright purple color, I thought, no, I would just mess things up if I then added like green coloring to it as well. But I thought I'd use the pandan as well in this, which is something called Onde-Onde. Onde-Onde is like, I called it Malaysian mochi or mochi. I don't even know how to pronounce the word. It goes to show how filtered I am in terms of my understanding of Asian cooking, right? But basically it's these coconut coated dumplings that are stuffed with palm sugar. So these are the palm sugar balls that I've rolled up, right? And palm sugar, Malaysian palm sugar, we call it gula melaka. In Indonesia, it's called gula aren or gula jawa, right? So I basically open up a pack of a couple of logs of palm sugar and process them in the food processor till that they're soft and mushy, kind of like brown sugar, really. Okay. And then from there, because they have a sticky, tacky texture to them, I can then just pinch, like grab bits of it and then pinch them and squeeze them into, technically you want marble sized balls, but I'm being greedy, so I've made bigger lumps of them. Okay, so that's all it takes. And really, I mentioned about how if you use fresh coconut, and now I've got desiccated coconut sitting in a bowl over there, and you know how I mentioned about the fresh coconut going off quite quickly. In reality, these dumplings, when you chill them or when they're exposed to the elements, right, they're going to go hard after a while as well. So they're not going to taste quite as nice. I know some Malaysians say, oh, you just microwave it and they'll soften right up. But I find when you microwave it, it doesn't soften up evenly. So that's a problem. It's ideally something that you want to eat fairly quickly. So I've got these balls here. I'm just basically grabbing lumps of it and then just making an indent in the middle And then I'm going to just place the palm sugar ball in here and just seal it up. And you want to just kind of like ball it up a little bit. I love the coconut jam in Malaysia when they sound interesting. Yeah, I make coconut jam all the time, but yeah, no one can eat it at home, but not at school now. So I'll basically just put this. I'm just going to put this in the boiling water over here, and it's just going to start to gently boil and then float up after a while. You just got to be careful while this is cooking that it doesn't stick to the bottom of your pan, okay? So just make sure. Just, you know, feel it around at the bottom. So it does get stuck, just gently kind of like peel it off, otherwise it won't cook properly. So I'm just grabbing this over here and just rolling it. You want to work it a little bit because it's dough, and it just helps prevent it from splitting if it's been kneaded a bit, right? Okay, so I've got this, roll it into a bowl. Okay, let's make an indent like this. You've got the palm sugar, place it in there and just seal it up, right? And just gently roll it up again just to make sure that it's sort of round. It doesn't actually really matter, because once you coat it with coconut, you're not going to notice that they're not perfect rounds, okay? So again, just one of these, indent, palm sugar, covered it up, roll it gently into a bowl and toss it in. So this is actually a good recipe for kids who are learning to cook, because it's kind of fun, right? And you don't need a lot of ingredients. So that, indent, and there you go. Cover it up. There you go. Toss it in. It'll take probably about 5 minutes or so to cook up, and then you've got to dish it out and toss it in the coconut. Oops. These are actually quite a lot larger than what you get in Malaysia. When I was in Malacca, which is the town that made gula Melaka or palm sugar famous, right? And I had these. These in Malaysia are called onde-onde in most places, but in some places they're actually called kueh buah Melaka, okay, which means Malaccan tree seed kueh, technically is what it means, right? Basically, Malacca fruit kueh. Kueh is like a generic name for snack, right? So kueh buah Melaka, because in Malacca is named after a particular tree, like, which is called the Malacca tree, okay? So the state of Malacca is named after a tree called Malacca tree, and it does actually produce fruit that resemble these onde-onde. Well, these onde-onde, they resemble the fruit, okay? But you see the size of my thing. But the ones that you find in Malacca fruit is about this size. It's about a third the size of mine, okay? So they're tiny, they're very delicate. I just like to make everything large, because I don't have to make 50 of these tiny little sugar balls, okay? I just make everything larger and you eat less of it, okay? But yeah, if you go to Malacca and you look at these, you'll think, oh my God, Jackie's onde-ondes are ginormous by comparison. Okay, so put this in there. And again, just make sure, if they're not floating up, just make sure it's not because they're stuck to the bottom. And a couple of them, in fact, are stuck to the bottom. So just be careful a little bit. You want the water to actually be, yeah. Ideally, you want the water to be gently simmering when you put these balls in. Okay, so, okay. That. hole in the middle, put that in, wrap it up. Okay. Okay. Sometimes you're going to find that these balls split in the water, okay, so then it's not so nice. But generally it's a pretty easy dish to make. So yeah, next time if you've got a bunch of kids wanting to have a go at cooking, get them to do this. I can see like at least one of them starting to kind of like want to float up. I think the water isn't as strong as it usually would be, so just that. There. In there, and wrap it up. Okay. And one more. Okay, cool, radio. Let me get a slotted spoon and we'll take it from there. There it is. Okay, so let me move this up close. So I just got a warning from Telstra saying that I've nearly used up my data allowance. So I'm going to rush this through quickly, guys, because I've got 2 more broadcasts after this before my next data allowance refresh. Yeah, crazy, right? Anyone who's actually a telecoms marketer and wants to sponsor these broadcasts, let me know, because I can't. I mean, this is ridiculous. I already pay like 250 plus bucks a month for my internet, etc. Okay, I need to change out the gas here. Oh no, it's still going okay. It just seems to be very slow cooking. Okay. And over the course of like so far 6 broadcasts, 7th today, I've already used up practically all my data allowance. Okay. So this is starting to float up, right? When they float up, you know they're done. I generally, when they float up, I like to let them stay floating up for another like 30 seconds or so. And the reason for it, sometimes I hate when you bite into these dumplings and you find that they're still not all the way cooked through in the middle. And okay, there you go. So taking it out, and I'm going to toss this into this. If you can see this, I'm struggling with my camera a little bit today. Okay, so I'm just going to like gently coat it with coconut. Okay, I guess the color could have been a little bit more intense. I think I was a little bit too light-handed with the coloring, but yeah, but you get the idea. So that's the Onde-Onde. And when you bite into this, right, you're going to find, ideally when you bite into it, you're going to find that the sugar has like almost completely, but not necessarily entirely melted through. So it's kind of like a gooey thing when you bite into it. So it's quite nice. And what could have, you can't see, you can't find palm sugar. That's a good question. I would suggest using like demerara sugar, which is like the really soft brown sugar, and maybe adding a little bit of water to kind of like help it hold together and trying it that way. But it's interesting that you can't find palm sugar out your way. It's a little bit disappointing. So just got this here. Just gonna toss it in. Let me just move my camera. I must get rid of these pictures. And where is it? Okay, let me just move this over here. Okay, so there you go. You just want to kind of like toss it around a little bit, move it around. I was thinking that what could be a good replacement, you know, but that's a good question for the palm sugar. So there you go, guys. Just taking out the rest of it. Okay, so you see how easy it is to make, right? And then I have staff members who make these even larger to like actual, like basically almost the size of like half their palm, you know. Okay, so just toss it around the sugar, and let me take some out so you can have a look. They're quite hot at the moment, so I'm not going to try and attempt to eat them on camera. So you want to let them cool down a bit, otherwise it's like biting into something that's radioactive, okay? There you go. Okay, can see that? That's Onde-Onde, guys. Super easy, right? Give it a go. Let me know how it turns out. Like I say, if you're watching this from anywhere else apart from Twitch, my Twitch URL, the simple one to remember, is just jackiem.live, okay? And that will take you to my Twitch screen. And this is where you get a chance to interact with me live and get to win prizes, okay? So I'm actually shipping out one of these bottles overnight tomorrow. But apart from that, you know, I've got other sponsors and all that wanting to come on board for giveaways as well. And also I've got my own giveaways. So keep watching these, guys, because you earn points by watching depending on how long you watch, right? So if you've got any, you know, so this might turn into a competition where you get rewarded for your watch time and that sort of stuff. And I'm going to switch off now. Like I say, I'm very, very concerned about my data allowance. I have to find maybe a cheaper mobile data plan supplier, and then I can do more broadcasts. Okay, guys, thank you. I'll see you this Wednesday. Don't forget to, I'm going to be starting a vegetarian series, not this Friday, but probably the Friday after, and it's going to be with Miss Tanya Strange, who you would have seen last Friday with me. She's she's a half-baked vegetarian, so we're going to be doing vegetarian recipes. That'll be interesting. Spread the word. Don't forget jackiem.live, and the recipes will appear at jackiem.com.au. I'll see you this Wednesday in 2 days. Thanks, guys. Ciao.